Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone, and welcome to week number 8 for our community Zoom meetings. And tonight is a special one because we're leaning into looking. We're going to do visual things. And so this is not something we've really done much of before. We're going to show you pictures tonight, and we're going to post the visuals of tonight. So if you're listening to this on the recording on Spotify, say, you may want to switch over to YouTube, and that link will also be available in our on our webpage. So I have with me tonight Mary Cronin, who's the Director of Audience Engagement at the Brandywine Museum of Art in Chadds Ford here. So she develops programs for all ages that involve looking and experiencing beauty and awe and making things. And so Mary's work touches into a lot of the things that we're interested in learning life skills together. So I've asked Mary to put together an attention practice for us, since we always begin with a practice. So Mary, if you wanted to share your screen, I think.
I will do that.
Perfect.
All right, there we go. So we're going to start and just take a few moments to practice observation. And as Don said, if you're watching the webinar, we have this image here to share that you may use. Or if you are listening to the podcast, you're welcome to look at something in person in the space where you are. So you can find something around you that might hold your attention for a few moments. Might be the view outside the window, or it could even be an object in the room with you. Let's begin. Start by focusing your attention on this image. Take a moment to look at it closely. Where does your eye go first? What pulls your attention? Keep looking at this same spot and think about why this part of the image might stand out to you. Now let your focus move to another part of the image. How is this part connected to that first spot that you noticed? Does your eye want to rest here, or does it want to keep on moving? As you are looking, find lines within the image. You might find straight lines, curved lines. Now trace one of the lines with your eyes. Take a moment to do that. See where that line leads you. Now begin to look for shapes. Can you find geometric shapes, such as squares, circles, rectangles, or triangles? Do you see organic or free-form shapes? I know we're focused on looking, but what I'd like you to do right now is to actually close your eyes and silently count to 5. Now open your eyes again and look at the image. Is there anything there that you're now noticing for the first time? If we were actually in the museum looking at this painting by Andrew Wyeth, we might now talk about what we observed and start a discussion about what the artist hoped we would notice. As we're in a virtual space, I'll ask you to bring your focus back to the virtual room, and I'll invite you to think about the experience that we just had.
And Mary, I'd like to expand this just a little bit because when we're doing these attention practices in our life skills setting or our life skills context, um, we're looking out, and then we're also looking to see how we're moved within. So I'm wondering if everyone could take a little moment to check in after paying this kind of close attention. What is it like in your body right now? What do you find? Turn your attention to how your muscles are, how your breathing is. And what do you notice about your mind? How is it operating? The quality of your thought, maybe. And maybe even an emotion might be here. It might have a name. So now I'd invite you all to type a little bit for us into the chat if you would like, and maybe share something that showed up for you. It's either on the visual side or on the internal side, either way. And so I have to say that for myself, I feel a little bit tight in my body because I was really noticed that I was really focusing on the artwork here on the screen. And another thing that I noticed was that I was very intrigued because I'm about 3 feet from it, and my you can see you can see today that I wear glasses, and so it wasn't easy for me to focus, and I was not quite sure what the dog's head was lying against, and I was very intrigued by that. And then I was drawn into the 2 other pictures, the pictures within the picture, I guess, the windows looking out. There's a whole lot happening in such a picture of stillness. Counting on my crew here to let me know if there's anything coming in on the chat. Sorry. A sense of tired in a good way and moving towards quiet. Hmm. There's a share. Mary, how about yourself? Just a
Yeah,
quick
I think
check-in.
I agree that it's a quiet image, just as the person commented. It's actually called Night Sleeper.
Ah,
And I guess in part, perhaps the dog is that night sleeper. Um, Here, I guess what I noticed, kind of like you, Don, I enjoy looking. It does take my attention away from whatever else might be preoccupying me, but then I find myself generating questions and wondering why the artist did certain things or what it might be about.
Yeah, yeah, and so what's interesting to me, doing what I do, thinking about what these skills mean and what attention does for us. You know, the there's a quieting down, and then the questions come. So the questions are coming out of, having settled a little bit with the things. And I think that our questions are often really good that come out of that. Um, what was it? Tired, moving towards quiet. That our friend typed for us. Yeah. All right. Well, this is talking about looking, and this is the kind of attention that we're going to try to focus on tonight. And Mary, what interested me was, you said, well, if you're just listening, you can look at anything and do this. And could you talk a little more about that? Because this kind of attention that we're bringing, um, you have quite a depth of knowledge on it. So can you talk us through a little bit how, we as participants in this program, we're the adult figures, we're the parents, we're the carers, and so we need to practice these things, and we need to sort of get into the groove of them so that we can share them with the kids. That's our overall reach.
Absolutely. I mean, I think when we look at something like this, we're sort of using a different part of our brain, you know. It's not so much maybe the analytical side, but it can be that creative side. It's more of an open-ended experience. I know at the museum, when we look at a work of art with a group of folks, we do keep it open-ended. There isn't one right answer. And I think that's important to keep in mind if you're doing a looking exercise with yourself or with a group of family members. Certainly you can do something like this by going to a museum, but there are things just around your own home that you could look at and really delve into. There's things that we pass every day and miss the
Hmm.
details of, whether it could be a lamp in your living room or something that you never really noticed the shape of until you did an exercise like this. So there are a number of different ways to approach it. But it does help to focus your attention, and in a different way than we might normally. It's a little different than, say, concentrating on a math problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel that concentrating on a math problem coming back into my body, hav- having not been the math type. Yeah, that really tightens tightens my muscles up.
Sorry to bring that in.
No, no, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about this, across the week here, is that so much of this kind of looking is about taking things slowly, which we don't really tend to do, and even in a museum, I think we have a tendency to want to move on. And so there's a there's a sense of impatience rather than patience.
I think that's a great point. Studies in museums actually show that people spend, on average, around 15 seconds or something like that looking at any one work of art. And I think that the experience can be much richer if you pick out one work of art and maybe even spend up to a full minute or 5 minutes with it. Or do sort of what we did here today, take a few minutes and look at it, and then look away, or close your eyes for a few minutes and then look at it as if it's the first time again. You will almost always find something else. And if you're there with a friend or family members, you can really enrich the experience because everyone will notice something different, which is fun.
Yeah, yeah, the sharing part. I should have mentioned that as well. I mean that we're touching so many things, just the attention and the experiencing beauty and awe. I mean, I have to say that there's the quietness of this painting um really touched me emotionally in that way. It made me, it made, and there's a tiny edge to it too. I have to say, yeah, it's like, and what's going to happen
Yes.
next?
And I think
Maybe the
that's
light will just move a little more to one side, but
right. I
yeah.
mean, this painting can bring out discussion of a number of points. One of the favorite things that people will talk about is what time of day it might be.
Mm,
You know, the light is very bright.
yeah,
Is it a sunlight? Is it a moonlight?
yeah. Wonderful questions, and they make me see it differently,
Mhm.
as you said, each one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this idea of just being patient with it and letting it show you all of its facets, I think is sort of one of the takeaways from learning to look this way. So the other piece is this tying in our responses. And I think we need to give time for that as well, to notice how we are, and you did that. I mean, that's kind of part of your step by step way of looking, was to have us close our eyes and not see, and then to see again, and sort of have that chance to, oh wait, I'm noticing this, I'm feeling that. Yeah. So this is great. And how would you imagine, a parent who wants to sort of polish up this skill doing this on a regular basis?
Well, I mean, there's obviously you could go to a museum, but we're not all going to a museum every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Much as we might like to.
I know. I mean, I work in a museum, but I don't get to spend all day with the works of art.
Yeah.
Um, but there are some ways that you could do looking exercises either in nature or with things around the home. One of the things that we often recommend for people that might have younger children is to look at picture books. A lot of us have picture books, and even if your children are a little older, you may have some of those favorite picture books still on the shelf. Um, and the illustrators of picture books think very carefully about how they compose an image. And some of these images are rich to prompt discussion. You know, this is an image here by an illustrator named Cosby Cabrera from a book called Me and Mama. And we have illustrations from this book currently on view at Brandywine in a special exhibition. But I think it could be just looking at this picture. You don't need to read the book even. You could,
Yeah.
a lot of times we have story time, and um, having had younger children years ago, I know that you can be a tired parent and you kind of push through that story, and you might not linger, but um, just for a change of pace, try just picking up a favorite book and say, we're going to look at this picture tonight and just think about the story that goes with this picture. And it might be the story that the child's familiar with, that might be in the book, but you could also make up your own story.
Mm,
It's not necessary that it's the same one that you've been reading. So just take the opportunity to really look at the image. So this particular book is about a young girl and her mother, and really has a wonderful connection here as this little girl's coming down the steps to find her mom busy sewing. And I can imagine, you could easily imagine what might happen next and pick out all the details here that the illustrator, that Cosby Cabrera, has included.
Yeah.
It's really a beautiful image.
It really is. And there is a lot going on. And there's, you know, a feeling and emotion that I get from, particularly from the child
Mhm.
on the steps there.
And the book is very much told from the child's point of view. It's called Me and Mama.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is the child's point of view as she comes down the steps in the morning to find her mother at work
Yeah.
sewing here.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, what you're saying is that this could be a 10-minute bedtime story, just doing this. Yeah.
It could, and it could lead to a different type of discussion because, as I say, you don't have to tell the story all the time that's in the book. You know, you can really use your imagination, look at the details, and build your own story together based on what you're looking at.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I have one more example here that's a really beautiful image by an artist named Misha Archer. And her book's called Wonder Walkers. And the text that goes with this page is says, "Is rain the day's tears?" So this is a picture of children walking outside on a rainy day and enjoying it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we rush to get away from rain, or we stay in, but these children are embracing the rain. And yes, asking questions about what they see around them. So is rain the day's tears, I think, is an interesting question.
Definitely.
So I think for the youngest children, picture books can work really well.
Yeah, well, actually,
Storytelling.
for this older child,
Yeah.
working pretty well too. I mean, yeah, well, I do find myself drawn to really amazing children's books. I mean, we have quite a few in our house. And you're right, just to pick a book up and look at a picture and spend time and then put it back down and move on. It's something we can get into our lives, and it gives us that little bit of pause and maybe starts to develop that kind of observation, as you were saying, and also that patience for it, because we want to get things really fast.
Mhm.
You know? Usually images are coming at us fast because they're
I see our a viewer says that the picture books can be used with all ages, so she's agreeing with you.
yeah, for sure. Okay.
Definitely.
So this would be an approach for little kids and adults, but then there's that group where, you know, I'm not a little kid anymore, and proud of it. And so, and so maybe that's not the thing that's going to get me. What would you do in that age group case?
Well, I think I brought a couple examples from the museum. And again, if you're not in a museum, you can often find examples of images online that you could print out, you know, or look together on a on a screen if you don't. But if you don't want to have screen time, you can find something in a book or print out an image. I will say, Brandywine Museum, we have quite a bit of our collection available online. And if you go to our website, you can pull up some of these images. So one that you could pull up that I might recommend for more that sort of elementary age student, maybe ages 5 to 10, would be an image like this. This is an image by an artist named Horace Pippin, who was born in Westchester. And he is chronicling some some moments of everyday life here with this family. And one of the things that elementary children really enjoy is storytelling. And not only listening to a story, but making up their own story.
Yeah.
So images that would be narrative images where you could build a story would definitely be of interest. So something like this, I think, you can start with this age to ask more detailed questions of the image. So we can see this is a mother and two children, but we can puzzle out maybe what time of day it is or what season of the year it might be. Things like that. There's clues here.
There are, yeah.
Yeah, the artist has given us clues. So I think that can be fun to do with an elementary age student. They're very able to find those clues. In fact, you might not even have to ask those questions. Kids
Yeah.
this age are often just ready to tell you based on what they see.
Yeah. Yeah. I have several stories running already.
Okay. Yeah, there's some great details here. You can see the open doorway that if you peer back there, just a few strokes of paint there, but it appears to be a bed. It looks like maybe that's the bedroom. And these children perhaps are getting ready for bed. And so there's an opportunity even just to think about our own rituals around going to bed.
Yeah.
What are some things that help us to wind down at the end of the day? Is it reading together or looking at a picture or
Being together in that way, touching each other seems to be really important.
Yeah, definitely here. So this is a nice type of image, I think, for an elementary student. I have another example here, complete change of pace. So this is when it's not bedtime, okay?
Yeah, you're gonna get some riled up stories with this one.
Right. But I mean, sometimes what you want is something with a little more action. And I know, there are children who really can get engrossed in a quiet image, but there are other children who are ready to do something a bit more physical. It can be a strain for some children to sit for any period of time and just look. Looking may not be active enough. So sometimes at the museum, we will have elementary or younger kids pose like somebody who's in a picture.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking was, boy, I'd really like to check that out and see what that feels like to be striding that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can, with an elementary student, you can really push this further and really have them try to match their body to the image, make sure is their stride as long as the pirate in the picture, and is their arm tense like some of these gentlemen. Now, this one is sadly a little violent looking with the weaponry. So I apologize for that. But this is a classic image from N.C. Wyatt's Illustrations for Treasure Island, a book that was written by Robert Louis Stevenson.
And there's this piece of beauty too, which is all the violent looking weapons and the birds. And the birds kind of are like the weapons, but kind of the weapons too, in the way they're painted there. It's really, it's a cool thing.
So this is when you need something a little more active, but you can pick out other images too and try some physical activities. And that may help some children extend their attention span. It may allow them to focus longer.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think, definitely. I always think that active looking can be enough, but I do recognize that at some point people need to move their bodies.
Yeah. Oh, it'll bring those feelings that are in the picture into the into the body feelings. Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
A great idea. And if you had 3 kids, you could put the scene together. You could
You definitely could.
yeah, or play out the next step.
And this
Yeah,
one has lots of narrative story possibilities as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So, yeah. And then you might have children that are a bit older. As children get older, I think they still enjoy story, and they also enjoy seeing the skill of an artist. To see,
Hmm.
they start to think about how an artist has put a picture together, some of the technique used. And I brought another pirate picture to talk about for that.
Ah, okay.
So just sticking, and again, these are from Treasure Island, from an illustrated edition of Treasure Island. So you wouldn't have to come to the museum to see the original paintings, although
Hmm.
that's fun. But you could also get this book, most likely at your library, and see some of these same images. And use the images for a conversation. And this is an image that we enjoy using with sort of tweens or teenage students, middle school
Mhm.
students in
Yeah,
particular, I
yeah.
think, enjoy looking at this and just thinking about it a bit. And also doing some analysis of it. Like, what is the artist trying to show us, and how is he creating this mood? We'll ask students to come up with one word to describe the
Mm.
picture, just
Oh,
to get a conversation started. I think for middle and high school, the hardest part sometimes can be just to start that conversation.
ah, yeah, and that's a great one. One word. Yeah,
So just one word, and then you can build that out into, well, what made you think, that word?
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's really helpful.
um, and here I think this is very much a moment of suspense that the
Mhm.
artist has created. And
Uh,
this is often an age also that likes horror movies and things like that. And I think this
oh,
has some element of that in it, where the artist is creating this kind of feeling of like, what will happen next? It feels like something big.
it does. Yeah,
And I won't give it away.
please.
Let's see. All right. Our viewer says lost in anguish are two words that they
Ah, okay.
bring to
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
And that's actually really interesting, because I think, I'm not giving away too much to say, if you read the book, this character of old Pew or blind Pew, he's not the nicest
Mm.
person. He's not that nice. He's done some not great things in his life. But the way the artist has presented him here, the way N.C. Wyeth depicts him, I think does give us a sense almost of feeling a bit sorry for him at times. I think that's possible. Okay, so Sandy says they never read the book. So you don't
Oh
need to
my.
know the story, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't need to know the story. And I agree that
yeah.
definitely this character's lost. But that anguish is something I think that we start to feel just in the way the image is put together. I also think that can bring out empathy. And Don, I don't know how that fits into your
No, I mean,
construct.
that's this thing. So we're paying attention to this picture, and it gives us a feeling that we can check into, right? The more I look at it, the more attention I pay, the deeper my attention becomes. It's like we were talking about at the beginning, right? Where there's that sense from the paying attention, that we get drawn in and we're able to see more and more and maybe more clearly. And as we were saying, those questions start to come up, and they're good questions. They're good questions. What's he feeling? What's that character that's painted their field, and how does that affect me? So it's this back and forth that really starts to help us use our attention to understand our world and to understand ourselves. We sort of want to, when we're teaching this skill of attention, make sure that it comes back to us. And what about me? How about me in this moment? Because I can get very absorbed in blind Pew there too. Right?
You can, and
Yeah.
you can both fear him and empathize with him, which I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah.
part of the beauty of the image. When I read the book, I didn't feel the same empathy for this character in reading the story. But when I spend time with this image, I do. And I think that's an extra element that N.C. Wyeth here brings, the illustrator brings to the image. He puts himself and puts all of us into the character.
Yeah, you feel that there's some fear in this character, for sure. That there's some vulnerability to his face and to the starry sky behind him. I don't know. It's getting to me.
It's getting to you.
Getting to me, yeah. Well, one of the things that I was thinking about as we were looking at these two illustrations was, you're saying, well, this is like perfect for these tweens and everything. And Jack Hawkins, the main character, right, is this age group that we're
Yes,
talking about. So
absolutely.
it's really like pitch perfect. Yeah,
Definitely.
thank you for this.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, as I said, with this age group, I think part of being successful in focusing as a family and doing an activity together is to prompt conversation. So something like this, it's hard to just look past it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
got a lot, there's something happening here, and it does pull your attention.
Yeah, once you pause enough, get into it, that's that patience part that we were talking about at the top of things too.
Yeah.
Is okay, we're gonna do this, guys, for 3 minutes here. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
And tell me a word at the end. This.
And the other thing I would say to parents is don't be afraid to have silence in the room when you're doing this.
Yeah.
Say we're going to take a moment, and then take a moment and be quiet and just let people look, or ask a question and give everyone a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
So I have one more image for this age group. Let me see if I can get that to come up. Here we go. Very different one.
Oh.
But I think tweens and teens are also at a good age where they can grasp images from history. They're learning about things like that in social studies, and not to make this too much like school, but this is the type of image that if you really delve into, you're going to learn a little bit about people today, but also people in the past. This is a work by an artist named Alice Barber Stevens. And she did this for the cover of the Ladies' Home Journal, but like 120 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
And this is actually a department store, Wanamaker's, right in Philadelphia, in downtown Philadelphia.
Wow. Yeah.
So your teen or tween is not going to know what Wanamaker's. It's now Macy's, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
In Philadelphia, but the idea of shopping is something that we probably can all relate to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And sort of this idea of people playing different roles in society, I think, is an interesting one that you can see here.
Yeah.
So the thing that draws attention often is that this one woman has a dog with her
Oh,
in
yeah.
the store.
My eye went right there.
Yes. So she's shopping in her beautiful dress with her pet dog. There's some very dressed up women on the left here, and a little girl all dressed up. And then we see the folks on the right who are the shopkeepers.
Yep.
And they're
And their clothing, which is different. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to look at. Yeah. Very cool.
and then the one figure that you kind of wonder about is this little girl right in the front.
Yeah.
And that's,
Shopping or working.
yes, she's working.
Mm-mm.
She's working
Yeah.
and young to looks young to be working.
Yes, yes, for sure.
So
Yeah.
this is a case, when you do look a little bit into the history, you find out that they were starting to talk about child labor at this time. And there were no laws about child labor yet. So it's likely this little girl was working. And the artist is very likely putting this figure right in the front to make a bit of a statement about that.
Yeah.
So again, that idea of sort of some empathy, thinking about this child, what might her life be like?
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about.
So many stories there. For as you say, a more sophisticated onlooker.
Yes, so this is more of a conversation. I mean, not that elementary students could also relate to this image and pull quite a bit out of it. But I do think by middle school age, students are able to put sort of the timeline together a bit more to understand the passage of time.
Yeah.
So it becomes just more rich from that standpoint, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a comment.
So do you have images for that next group?
Beyond teen?
Yeah, beyond teens and tweens, i.e. us?
I think all of these are good for us.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah.
It sort of works that way.
And in fact, our one viewer commented that they're wondering about the dog's story and the dog's life.
Yeah, exactly. That's an emotional support dog, I think.
It could be.
From the 19th century.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who
Interesting.
knows?
Yeah.
But you can, I mean, but that's another way to relate to these images for any age, is to pick somebody out in the picture and think about that person's life.
Yeah.
Or what they might be thinking of. Oh, or someone says it could be a status symbol as well, to be able to shop and bring your dog.
Yeah. So what's great about this from a parent and carer viewpoint is that we can have these responses to, the children's books, even the earliest ones, right, that are just images, all the way up to a really sophisticated presentation of history or something like that. That we can find the things in it and resonate with it and have an appreciation to share all the way along. It's not, you know, it's not like, oh, well, I'll do this, but I can't wait until the kid is 10.
Right.
It's always something good for us, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I really feel that. So you didn't bring anything for the adults directly, but I think it's that idea. And the other thing that I'm wondering about is that, it's great to do these things at home. It's great to just pull down a book and look, or pull up a website and look at some image and do this pausing and being patient with it, and a little bit of questioning at the right level for the child's development. And we sort of know that because we know our kids. So the next thing I'm wondering is, so when we want to do this in a special way, I mean, we need to do these things, this kind of paying attention in various ways. all across our week, you know. Um, we learn through practice, and we learn these skills of noticing what's happening outside and noticing what's happening inside by repeating over and over again. And we adults polish up our skills by doing the same thing. So I'm thinking, where else could I go? What else might I do that would make it special sometimes?
Well, one of the things, let's see, a couple things, but one of the things I brought this picture uh,
Oh,
because one of the things I wanted to mention was this idea that if you want to extend an activity like this, you can encourage your children and yourself to respond by creating your own work of art.
mm,
And I think in doing this, um, art supplies don't need to be anything fancy or expensive. You can have paper and just pencils or some markers or crayons. Kids love sketchbooks. If you buy a small
mhm.
sketchbook, um, that can be something fun, and that can be something that you can bring when you go somewhere as well, on a road trip or even to a museum or out to take a hike. It can be fun to have a pencil and a sketchbook along. And keep in mind, if you are doing an art, letting your family respond through art, that it's not really about the final result, but it's more about that process of
Mm,
creating the art.
yeah.
um, it can be just about that process of putting pencil to paper. For younger children, it can be just about having a piece of paper and a pair of child safety scissors and just cutting.
Yeah.
That can be very satisfying for a younger child, or for an adult.
Huh.
So some simple art supplies and just some simple looking exercises to capture something on paper. This image here was by the artist N.C. Wyeth, and he's showing us his son, Andrew Wyeth, who was the artist who did that first image that we looked at of a different dog. But
Mm.
here's Andrew at age 16 sketching their family dog with his friend David holding the dog so that the dog would be still. But even something like this, drawing a family pet, um, drawing something out in nature on a hike, there can be a lot of ways to use art making to respond
Yeah.
to this idea of looking.
And doesn't that just do what we're talking about with the skill, which is looking outward and then checking in to see what you want to do? Whatever
Yes,
you looks like we might have a question.
we do. And I'm just doing the math, speaking of math, to try to answer that. What year was the painting done? I think it would have been done around 1932. Andrew was born in 1917, and he was 15 or 16 at the point that his father captured him um, sketching the family dog. So um, the other thing I would mention, just for the parents and the adults, is give yourself the opportunity to create as well. And again, remember, it's not about the final image. So even just making some repetitive marks on paper, doing some doodling, drawing circles, connecting squares, something like that can be very satisfying and can just take your brain in another direction and be something to help let go of stress. So we had a comment that did this painting cause a bit of a stir because there's children here of two different races, and that the dog is black and white. The dog just happened to be, I could probably get the breed wrong, but it's a dog that it would have been black and white, like a French bulldog or something like that, I think.
Yeah, it looks like to me.
Um, but Andrew Wyeth, when he was growing up in Chadds Ford, there was a Black community in Chadds Ford very close to his home, and he became friendly with a number of people in that community, including David Lawrence, who's shown here holding the dog, and David was one of his best childhood friends. So it is unusual to see that from the 1930s, I suppose, but these were kids living out in the country whose houses were near each other, and um,
Yeah.
They clearly had a nice friendship. Let's see. Oh, some other resources that I could share too for I'll give a little plug to the museum. Of course,
Oh,
it doesn't
please. Yes, absolutely.
look like this today. This is a springtime picture. But the Brandywine Museum is located along the Brandywine River. And in addition to the inside of the museum, we also have a beautiful outside. There's a trail that goes along the river there, and it's not a long trail. It can be a probably even a 20-minute walk. Don, I think you've been on the trail, so
Yes, we have. We had a wonderful time. Walked it twice, in fact, with two
okay.
different groups.
And,
Yeah.
the interesting thing is it's just along the parking lot there. You're not going deep into nature. Um,
And in some way you are.
yes, that's
Because you turn and you look out at the river and across into the trees and meadows there. And yeah, it's absorbing. It's in a way, it's like what we were doing.
Mhm,
Yeah.
I agree. So
Yeah.
it kind of makes the point that if you're going to focus on nature, you can even do it in your backyard. You can even do it on a city street. You can find a small park or a tree, often some weeds growing in a crack in the sidewalk that,
Yep. Yep.
can hold your attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Brandywine's parking lot can be also a beautiful, beautiful spot.
It can.
Um, we also have, this is just a picture of our galleries, and we do often have some little seating areas in the gallery, which can be a nice place. Kids can get tired at a museum, so it's nice to take a little break and sit down and talk about some of the things that you've seen if you do come to a museum to
Yeah.
visit.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's that patience piece again, because the museums don't go away. So you don't have to see the whole museum at once, I want to say. It's kind of do these things that we're talking about with attention. See some pictures. And when you're tired, get something to eat or go home. Try it again another time. I mean, that's from too many years of museum going and finally realizing those things.
I agree, and
Uh,
less is more.
yeah,
Especially if you're bringing children.
it really,
You know,
that's how I learned.
yes, go into a
Yeah.
gallery and look at a few things and really talk about them, and then go get a snack because that's what they'll remember. They'll remember that they went to
Exactly
the
right.
cafe and had a cookie or something.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, and that's time that you're spending together, which ultimately, I would guess, ultimately your goal is to spend time together as a family, even more than to expose your children to art. That's important, but
yeah.
most important is that time spent together.
That time spent together talking about how we are, I would say, is what the skill lets us do, right? We can look out and we can look in and we can say, this is how I feel about this. And if we can do that about a painting, then maybe we can later on do that about something that is tough in our life.
Absolutely.
So ultimately that's the skill piece here that we're developing. And what fabulous, beautiful ways to do that.
Let
Eh,
me also mention two things, because I know coming to a museum can be expensive for a family. And I'll point out that I believe it's in Delaware and Chester County, and it may be in some other nearby counties that,
Montgomery is true also. Yeah.
okay, you can get passes to go to some of the
Yeah.
museums.
Yeah.
So you take a pass out from the library for the weekend, and you can take your family to the museum, which I think is fun to do. And also, starting again in February, so just when you need to get out of the house, starting the first Sunday in February, we'll again be having our free First Sundays. And those really are designed for families. We do those from not every month, but most months from February till about November. We have not only free admission, but family activities on the first Sunday. So check our website to make sure it's a Sunday that includes that. As I say, we won't do it in December or January, but it'll start again in February. And we have a comment in the chat. They're hoping to visit the Rooted Book Illustrations exhibition soon.
Okay.
And that really is, that's definitely worth coming to see. We currently, I showed 2 images from that show. I think I have one more here. This is one more that's from that exhibition. It's called Rooted, and it's images from children's books, contemporary children's books, focused on nature and family. And it really is a fun exhibition to go through with a family and kids of any age, and adults. Adults enjoy it as well.
Yes, I walked through myself, and I highly recommend it. It is, it's really ultimately uplifting. It makes you feel good by the time.
Good, and it'll be up through mid-February, so you have time.
Wonderful. Perfect.
Time to get there to see that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Mary, thank you so much. This has been a real eye opener, so to speak. I'm sorry, I'm prone to dad jokes, but but I really appreciate the way you walked us through these things, and that the kind of attention that we paid is the kind of attention that we really need to develop in ourselves and our children. And so I thank you so much. I look forward to continuing our dialogue about attention. It's maybe in some other venues, and maybe on this one again, who knows? So we're going to sign off at this point.
Thank you for having me tonight. It's been fun.
We appreciate it.